Whenever I see headlines like this, I get kind of frustrated because you always want to do this, okay? Here's the headline. Trump approval at 51%, winning millennials trusted more than Democrats on economy. And that's fine. There is a poll. It's from Zogby, and this is true. They did find these results. However, people will choose whichever poll props up their narrative. You can easily find a poll that says Trump is doing bad. You go on if you turn on MSNBC, that's what you're going to see. If you turn on Fox, you're going to see Zogby or something. So, when you're trying to really understand what's going on in the world, these kinds of headlines, I get it. Conservatives are going to try and prop themselves up to prove them right because they're fighting that battle. Liberals are going to do the same thing. I'm sorry. I shouldn't call them liberals because most of there are liberals like, me or I actually think the Weinsteins are progressive, but you know what I mean, right? The left is not liberal. But you pop over to Real Clear Politics, and I will say this. I always check the aggregates, as should you. But the reality is Trump's job approval actually is almost as high as it's ever been, which is actually surprising to me. So, I initially see the story and I said, okay, let's take this and then look at the aggregate and show where we're really at. Well, we're not at 51% in the aggregate right now. We can see that when they aggregate all of these different polls from the end of April until now, you can see that Trump is at 44.9. However, look at the black line is Trump's approval rating. It's actually almost higher than it's ever been. It peaked at 45.1, and the highest it's ever been is 46. This is the aggregate, okay? This is not, like you'll find him having a higher approval rating on other polls. Rasmussen had him at 49 to 49 as a tie as of the 9th. But actually, when you look at the aggregate, we can see that Trump actually is polling pretty well for, relative to his presidency. We can see that his disapproval rating skyrocketed. Actually, he had more approval and disapproval, but then his disapproval skyrocketed. So Trump's disapproval right now dominates for sure. But Trump's disapproval is particularly low, but his approval rating, again, one more time, it's almost as high as it's ever been. So let's read this story. Now that we've kind of looked at the aggregate and we can realize, if you want to put him at 51%, that's what Zogby did, fine. Like, that's their results. The aggregate doesn't show him above 50%, but he is polling almost as high as he's ever done. So let's read what they have to say. President Trump has crossed the critical 50% approval line needed to win re-election as millennials and independents are moving to embrace him, according to a new survey. The latest Zogby poll put Trump's approval rating at 51%, his highest ever in the trademark survey. So that's another really important bit. Zogby is legit, right? Zogby is legit polls. They've never had Trump this high before, so there you go. Zogby analytics pollster Jonathan Zogby said that the president is riding a booming economy and could be hard to beat should the nation's economic health continue to improve. His survey found that several groups that had been leaning against Trump were starting to favor him in large part because they have a growing confidence in the economy and Trump's handling of it. Notably, millennials and independents have turned in his direction. This graphic's actually fairly interesting. Who do you trust more to grow the U.S. economy? And we can see that Trump has 46%. Democrat leaders only has 42. 12% are not sure. So in terms of the political battle, the culture war, Democrats and Republicans, Trump, are going to be trying to snatch up this 12%. But for the time being, Trump's winning. All right, and that's really important because most a lot of prediction models for winning, a re-election have to do with, first, the incumbent always has an edge. But the economy is a big role, plays a big role. If the economy tanks or people don't have faith in the president to help the economy, Trump will lose. But right now, at least based on Zogby, it looks like Trump, here's the thing. I did a couple of videos. There have been poll after poll, forecast model after forecast model showing Trump is going to landslide 2020. I think that's absolutely the case, right? Especially if he's getting millennials. Overall, likely voters said they trusted Trump over Democrats, 46% to 42%, to grow the economy. With a solid economy, a potentially long and drawn-out primary season for Democratic presidential candidates, plus solid gains with independents, millennials, urban voters, college-educated voters, and minorities, Trump could be very hard to defeat in 2020, said Zogby. In addition to his base of supporters, Trump might be able to piece together another coalition and produce another improbable victory as long as everything goes as planned, but we still have a lot of time left on the game clock. The Zogby poll is the latest of likely voters that showed Trump receiving a bump in approval ratings after the release of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's 2016 election report. Even Gallup, which surveys the broad category of adults, had him at a record high 46%. And as I said 50 times already. Right now, yeah, he's polling nearly as high as ever done. Now, this is actually interesting because we can see that, here's the nuance. In the Zogby poll, 37% strongly disapprove, and that's the biggest bracket. But somewhat disapprove is only 11%, and somewhat approve and strongly approve are between 30 and 21, giving him 51%. And this shows you, this right here, somewhat approve, between somewhat approve and somewhat disapprove, is probably where like classical and social liberals fit, people who aren't identitarian and don't vote just based on where they're told to or the tribe. They're probably in a position where, you know, they're between these two. Here's the thing. Just because someone would somewhat disapprove of Trump doesn't mean they wouldn't vote for him, however. So here's an interesting, opinion, at least as I see it. I think the strongly disapprove people absolutely would not vote for Trump, right? They strongly disapprove. These are the never Trumpers. Somewhat disapprove might be presented with a worse alternative, right? Like Hillary Clinton. You might somewhat slightly disapprove of Trump, but strongly disapprove of the other candidate, and thus you'll vote for the lesser of two evils, or you won't vote, right? Whereas I think if you somewhat approve of Trump, you're probably likely to vote for him, albeit you could strongly approve of the other candidate. They say Trump's approval rating topped that of former President Barack Obama this far into his first term, but Trump has had the lowest approval ratings throughout his first term. However, this is true, right? President Trump's job approval rating has seen a post-Mueller report boost. We called it a few weeks ago, but that's not the complete story as to why the president has reached a peak in his job approval rating. Trump is also riding high on positive economic news, a record high stock market, low unemployment, and solid GDP growth at home. I don't know. Listen, whenever I talk about what I don't like about Trump, I can point to foreign policy. I'm very concerned about potential conflict in Venezuela, which I think is a bad idea. And these things tend not to work out very well for the United States. We keep doing it, though. Trump commando raids in Yemen, supporting Saudi Arabia with their conflict in Yemen. Yeah, I think these things are disconcerting. But when it comes to domestic policy, I really don't have anything to say. I mean, one of the arguments I've heard is that his policies are kicking the can down the road. Yeah, it's a short-term gain. Things are looking good now. But a lot of people think it's going to crash later on. I don't know that. I'm not an economist. All I can do, and the reason I'm saying this is not to defend or support anything Trump is doing. It's to make a point about regular voters who who don't know economics, right? I know a little bit about economics. I am no professor, okay? So when I see this, Trump says he's going to do X. All of a sudden now we have this record growth. We do have a massive debt. I shrug. I say, okay, right? This is good news for everybody. The economy is doing well. People are back at work. Record low unemployment. Damn. Well, I don't know what if look, there is the issue I was talking about, like the Chinese finger trap problem, or it could be that this is an illusion. We're seeing all these good things now, and then as soon as Trump leaves, everything tanks because it's a short-term, Band-Aid over a bullet wound. But you have to prove that, right? So it's up to the left if they want to put an argument against Trump. Prove to me why all of this news is bad. What does it mean in the long run, right? Long-term gains very often are more important than short-term gains. Short-term, you get something, short-term, and then later on you get hurt by it. We want to make sure we're constantly improving. We're planting trees that our children can sit beneath. But I got to say, for now, all this to me looks like it's going to be pointing in a positive direction. So again, if you're on the left, what you got to do is you got to come to me and say, here's why that's bad. Plain and simple. Zogby Analytics had President Obama at 48%. At the same time, 509, said the pollster's analysis provided two secrets in advance of its release. There were two intriguing findings in the survey. On the positive side, the poll found that 22% of Democrats approved of Trump. Wow, that's a surprise to me. But it also found that 59% of elderly voters disapprove of Trump, 59% to 41. That's surprising. Wow. There's some following takeaways. Trump's approval rating is the highest we have on record. That's seriously interesting. A slim majority strongly and somewhat approve of his job performance as president. His numbers are being driven by decent job growth, an inflated stock market, etc. Yeah, we talked about that. There are potential foreign policy threats like Iran, North Korea, a trade war with China, which could derail his current popularity with voters. Besides a good economy and vindication from the Mueller report, Trump's good approval rating is being driven by a surge in popularity among college-educated voters. What? No way! Voters living in the Western region, independents, millennials, suburban men, urban men, middle-aged voters, Trump's approval rating has improved with minorities, 27% of African Americans and 45% of Hispanics approve of the president, both very good numbers historically for Trump. College-educated voters? That I have trouble believing. Seriously. According to, but that's great news for Trump. According to recent job statistics, most job growth in the U.S. has occurred in large to medium-sized cities, which could also explain the good job performance rating Trump received from large and medium city voters. Trump has recently seen a spike in support among large and medium city voters. Almost half of each group approve of his job as president and think the U.S. economy will be positive for the next 4 years. Stock market has been fluctuating. I don't know. Trump talks about tariffs. He talks about, bringing jobs back. All that sounds good. Andrew Yang disagrees. Andrew Yang has some interesting proposals and talks about automation and VAT tax and the freedom dividend or universal basic income. The challenge now is, look, jobs aren't just about making money. Jobs are about purpose. And people who don't have purpose are unhappy people. Some people get bored. They want to do something. And a job is your purpose. So one of the issues as we see these two, the reason I bring up Yang is I think he has the best argument for anyone on the left or the Democrats. And Trump, he's the president, so his argument is it's working. So here's the challenge. We're seeing something work. Yang argues Trump is trying to roll back the clock to bring things back to where they were. That's not necessarily wrong, right? If we did things that were bad and we went left when we should have gone right, I don't mean that politically. I mean, you have a fork in the road and you took the wrong path, go back and then go the other direction. That could make sense too. So I don't know. All I can really say is you're going to have a hard time winning over people when you have such great numbers for Trump. Seriously. Listen, man, I know the people who watch my videos get it, but these progressives on the far left don't understand. You need to go and sit down with someone who's like a 50-year-old man with a couple kids. He wants to put into college. He wants to have, he wants his kids to have a better life. And you say to him, Trump is bad. Trump is all these really, really bad things. And what's he going to say to you? He's going to say, I don't know about that. I don't care. The economy is great. I got a job. Trump said it was going to work. And now my kids are going to college. Argue against that. It's going to be a tough position. I think Trump's on track to win. I got a couple more videos coming up in a few minutes. I will see you shortly.